There's never been anybody that's been so tough on Iran. This should have been done by Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama. It should have been done by Biden. It should have been done by Bush. It could have been done by a lot of people. This has been going on for 47 years. They've ripped you off for 47 years, and I'm the only one that did anything about it. They never shot missiles at anybody. We wiped out their Navy. We wiped out their military. We wiped out their Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft. They have no radar. You know, the reason oil stayed low is because we were taking ships out every night that you didn't even know about. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, a month ago, we took out 22 ships. We averaged from 15 to 25 ships a night. Nobody knew that. Our Navy did a great job. Nobody knew what was happening. That's why oil didn't go to $300 a barrel. It went to 125, 115. Now it's at 72, 73. I heard it's lower than that now. I haven't seen it in the last couple of hours. No, we were very tough, and we took out a man named Soleimani. Remember that? You know, you think this would have happened if you were alive? The evil genius. He was an evil genius. People forget that. I took out Soleimani in my first term. Without that, you don't have the situation that we're in today, where we dominated. We wiped out their military, and because we did that, and then we put up the blockade, which was totally effective. Not one ship got by, Steve.
Is the text of the agreement now final, or are you still...
No, it's not final. It's a memorandum of understanding, and if I don't like it, we'll go back to shooting at them, dropping bombs on their head.
When do you expect the wording?
If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head, okay? Because they've misbehaved for 47 years, all right?
Does it include
But nobody could have made this deal. I mean, the JCPOA done by Obama, he handed him $1.7 billion in cash, gave him hundreds of millions of dollars, gave him billions and billions of dollars, but he gave him $1.7 billion in cash, green cash from banks, into a Boeing 757 and flew it into Iran. And they stood at the plane. I have pictures of it, like, oh my, look at this money he's giving us. He tried to bribe his way out. I didn't do that. Nobody mentions that. $1.7 billion and hundreds of millions of dollars. They tried to bribe their way out of it. And you know what the Iranians did? They laughed at Obama and they said he's a stupid son of a bitch. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Well, that was Donald Trump addressing the media live from the G7 summit. Without mincing words, Donald Trump has said that what he has signed with Iran is a memorandum of understanding. If he doesn't like it, he can go back at shooting at Iran. He said that the previous presidents will not be able to crack this deal with Iran that he has been able to get. He said that it's an understanding, and he hopes that...
What are we talking about? You don't listen.
How and when?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Of course I support Egypt. He's a friend of mine. From day one, you know, I met him early in the campaign when Crooked Hillary and I were running against each other, right? And I was told that the president of Egypt is here. That was a big deal. It's still a big deal for me to be with the great president of Egypt, but not as big as it used to be before I ran. So he was in a hotel, and I met him. And we fell in love, deeply in love. And he didn't even want to see Hillary. He said, "You're going to win. I don't want to meet her." He said, "You're going to win." He didn't want to see her. Remember that? So we had a good relationship right from the beginning. No, we met. We didn't know each other before that. We had great chemistry. And I stayed twice as long as I was supposed to. It took up her time. And then when it was her time, he didn't want to meet with her. But he did because he's a gentleman. But it lasted about 1 minute. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, President. Thank you,
Donald Trump addressing the live media press conference. Without mincing any words, he has said that U.S. dominated the war with Iran, and he said that he has signed a memorandum of understanding, and if he doesn't like it, he can go back to shooting anytime. That was U.S. President Donald Trump making it clear that the deal is signed, but there are also hopes and there is also a chance that Donald Trump might not like the understanding. I'm being joined by News9 Deputy Output Editor Sneha Koshi is with me on the phone conversation. Sneha, Donald Trump did not mince word. He said that I have signed a memorandum of understanding with Iran, and if he doesn't like it, he can go back to shooting. How do you see this development and remarks by US President Donald Trump from the G7 summit?
I think, Nancy, he is playing his cards very carefully. He is playing his very cards safely at a time when largely there have been editorials across the world about how U.S., particularly Trump, has lost the war. So he's putting U.S. at the forefront. He's trying to put U.S. as a victor, as a winner, and therefore he's saying the peace deal doesn't hold if it's not followed through to the T by Iran. Trump very clear saying that Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. The Strait of Hormuz is partially open and will be fully reopened in 2 days. And the U.S. Navy has done a great job. This is something that he has said in the past as well, but he's reiterating this. And the messaging from G7 summit is for the world to hear, is for the world to look at U.S., of how to view U.S. amid what seems to be how Iran has not taken defeat at its face, despite the war, the attacks on Iran that really began, the manner in which began, and how Iran has stood its ground. So Trump at the G7, even at the time, remember this G7 summit is obviously coming at a time when there are a whole lot of world leaders who are present, especially a whole lot of European leaders, nation leaders are present. Many of them had criticized Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu over what the two leaders had done with Iran, the manner in which one even ceasefires, for that matter, were violated. So these were direct criticisms of European nation leaders at Trump, and now they're sitting face to face. So this messaging of Donald Trump from the G7 is very important, is very interesting, and he's gone on to also address about the Gulf countries and their standing, saying if the Gulf countries do want to invest, that's fine. I'm not going to tell anyone they can't invest in Iran. So that's also a very interesting point, because remember, the Gulf nations and their standing was also something that had that was challenged by Iran, where Iran said that these Gulf nations were allowing their bases to be used for propaganda from US and Israel, and that the Gulf nations were party to the onslaught against Iran. Now, with that standing of Iran, it's significant of what Trump has chosen to speak at the summit, at the G7 summit, where he's saying we will not stop the Gulf nations from investing in Iran. That itself, if you look at it, is a very clear indication of how things are not really in line with how Trump expected it to be, how U.S. would have wanted it to be. Because for whatever U.S. would have wanted, it would have not wanted anything to do with Iran, not just about nuclear weapons, not just about oil, but anything with respect to development as well. But Trump has not taken that line. So clearly, Trump making his statements, pitching his statements very carefully, and of course the sole discretion, the sole reason behind that is to position U.S. in the narrative from the G7 summit, Nancy.
Well, that's right, Sneha, but also we are getting that White House published a video and said it captured the moment where Donald Trump entered the summit and he told the G7 leaders that I am the boss. And we have seen that one war, Iran and US war, we see that there is, even though through a memorandum of understanding, it's still, we can see the world can take a sigh of relief. We also have Russia-Ukraine war going on as well, and the reports are coming in that the G7 leaders have agreed to put more pressure on Russia so that that war can also see the end of the tunnel. How do you see the developments that with so many global wars going on, how important it is for the G7 to take a united stand in the developing global situations?
That's right, Nancy. In fact, for what you are mentioning about that video of I am the boss is exactly what Trump wants, the messaging that he wants to go out of G7, and that's why he has chosen to speak from the GS summit about Iran. And as we were discussing, even the points that he has chosen to speak, how he has chosen to speak, is also extremely in line with that. In fact, for Trump to head-on take the Reuters report, where Reuters report had said that the $300 billion fund is something that the U.S. has agreed for Iran, and that is something that Trump has gone and negated head-on. That also is a very strong attempt at pitching U.S. as a victor.